A blindingly white expanse surrounds me as the Comitatus makes its way over the flats and terraces of Brime Mere. Yet despite the desolation, there might be hidden bounties here. Here, just below the terraces, right outside the town of Salum, the presence of miners and prospectors is constant. Sithicness dragon riders circle the skies, and overseers check on operations several times a day. There is no chance to harvest salt here without supervision, and soon enough, an official riding an Ifriani shows up to check my permission.
You can pick between a handful of areas designated for prospecting. The lower terraces are once again open for independent operations after a hiatus, so you could try your luck there. The Bright King's Ridge to the east, famous for the mysterious mage who proclaimed himself a sovereign on that very spot 5 centuries ago, only to perish in dragon fire, is also open for salt prospecting. Gorfindar's claim is off-limits for the time being.
No explanation is given, but even from here, I can see soldiers stationed around the site. We are going to the Bright King's Ridge.
Very well, have no fear. We are watching over the region.
The crew gets to work, bearing in mind that these operations are extremely dangerous. Harvesting salt can drain the moisture from people with astonishing speed, so I am recommended to work in shifts and change miners every couple of hours. Even like that, they'll require significantly more water to keep them from getting parched. Once I start mining, however, nobody checks on my progress, so I can forego these safety regulations, should I ever feel inclined to do so. Harvek, gather the slaves.
Everyone, form a proper line.
All my workers line up in neat order as I distribute the potion of quenching. I use 3 crews with hourly shifts. It is more taxing to the crew this way. With so many people involved in an inherently dangerous operation, there are always risks, especially if someone wants to make a decent profit and pushes harder. A handful of miners drag themselves by my work site in the early afternoon, probably making their way towards Salem. Upon inspecting them, I can see that something is wrong. They look weak and sickly, with strange boils covering parts of their bodies, much like burns. Their pale, wizened form shakes the crew's morale immediately. Are you okay? What happened? The miners settle down, most of them shaking from exertion and sickness. Keeping my distance, I listen to their account of what happened.
We were working east of the old plateau, same as always. The salt was good, nothing out of the ordinary. Then, the ground started to shake. Not like a cave-in. No, like something was moving underneath. Something huge.
Another cuts in, hands clenched tight.
We heard metallic noises, grinding, dull impacts. Then some invisible force knocked us off our feet. I swear, for a moment I thought the calamity was happening all over again.
The first man resumes after a fit of coughing.
We ran, left the tools, the beasts, everything. We camped farther out on the flats for the night. That's when it started.
A heavy silence follows.
First one of us started vomiting, non-stop. Then another, then another. After that, the burns appeared. Skin like it was being eaten away. Nausea. Headaches. Unbearable. 2 of us are already dead. The rest of us, we decided to head back to Salem. We're hoping the Sithicness can help.
Before falling silent, he adds,
We can show you where the camp was, but don't go there. Seriously. Even if there might still be something valuable left behind, that place is cursed.
What do we do, Vagrus?
I'd rather not take any risks. We pack up and head back to Salem. Perhaps I'll be able to gather more information about this strange disease. I order my men to relax as I look into these rumors of disease. The miners at my table murmur and grumble. They clearly do not want to talk about any sickness. I decide against pushing the issue, and am about to go back to the bar when a broad-shouldered Dajmahan from a corner table calls to me and invites me to sit with him. When I do, he tells me a story about his last outing on the flats. It all went splendidly until one from his brigade started to become very ill.
Not dead coughs and water madness you see typically either. This was something else. Vomits shaken and some kind of boils or burns on the skin. The man also said he had an ache in his head, but we all do for lack of water sooner or later. But then it spread to the others. They fell sick, and only half of the 24 returned here. I was spared, but I saw it turn ugly.
How did your former comrades contract the illness?
I don't believe it's the salt like da others. But da fellow who came down first was known to wander far north, pushing da limits.
What happened to the sick miners I came across in Brime Mere? The miner grows grim when I mention the unfortunate crew that stumbled into my camp, visibly sick and shaken. I quickly realize he does not speak as the innkeeper brings us our drinks.
Nasty business. The one you mentioned regarding that poor bunch of prospectors. One of 'em was my cousin. He never returned from the site, but some of his fellas did. They came here first, drank some, told us what happened.
He tells me what he heard from the miners, that they felt a quake and that an invisible force threw them to the ground. How they started to feel sick soon afterward, and when some of their mates died at the camp, the others fled back to Salum.
Our farm fell sicker, and a few died soon after arriving here. Then
He looks around furtively and leans closer to whisper.
Then a bunch of Dragonguard came of the opal kind and took the rest away very quickly. They said it was Dragonland's business, but I'm telling you, something about the whole shebang stank high as Mount Zin. Anyhow, they collected the poor sods and took off. Nobody saw 'em or heard of 'em ever since.
The burly miner then adds that I best not ask questions because I might disappear too. He tells me that the unfortunate brigade's camp was out on the old plateau, on the eastern side. Perhaps something remains there that would reveal what happened. Should I be interested to find out? For his part, he decided to leave it be for fear of his own safety.
All of this seems suspicious to me.
Could this be of a magical nature? An anomaly of the calamity at work in this area?
Perhaps. But what I find strange is the involvement of the Dragonguard.
It wouldn't surprise me if they made the witnesses and the undesirables disappear.
I think a small expedition is in order tomorrow. I am able to find the place where the sickly miners used to work quite quickly, despite it being tucked away in a ravine. Cavernous holes line the walls, some of which have stagnant, greenish liquid pooling here and there. The camp is not a pretty sight. It looks as if a gigantic, invisible hand reached out of the sky and knocked over everything. Amphorae of supplies, salt piles, tools, and tents. There are also the remains of the miners who succumbed to the sickness. Their salt, dried, wizened bodies lie all around the area. It is a grim place, and nobody from my crew wants to linger here. Nevertheless, I order the salt harvested by the miners to be loaded, and the bodies to be buried. A thorough search of the area reveals little at first, but then one of my cums shouts for me, and the crew gathers to look at a large crevice at the back of a dark, cavernous hole in the salt. It leads down into the ground, and as far as I can see, it is possible to descend into it. A low, grinding groan escapes the crevice, and the crew gasps upon hearing it. Could something live down there?
That doesn't sound good, Vagrus.
That may be so, but we are going down nonetheless. Renkailon, Harvek, You are in charge of the Comitatus until we return.
At your command.
I start to descend into the crevice. Darkness closes in all around me, while an acrid stench sits heavily in the air.
You know, Vagrus, it's not because I'm a dwarf that I enjoy crawling underground like an earthworm.
I descend into the chasm and reach the bottom. The cold, dry air of the cave here carries a strange, acrid smell. Even by the faint light coming through the shaft I used to enter through, I can see that several tunnels lead into utter darkness. All the walls and surfaces are made of petrified salt, and there are even stalactites and stalagmites in the cave. Pools of greenish, stagnant slime glimmer here and there. I'm about to decide what to do when I begin to notice a distant, grinding sound, like a low murmur. It comes from quite a ways away.
What was that?
A creature.
Stay alert.
My small company spends some time searching the tunnels. One of us stumbles into a cavern where, to my surprise, a copper pipe comes out of a salt wall, crosses the hall, and follows down one of the tunnels. It is about a foot in diameter and seems damaged at places, even though the metal is not completely punctured anywhere yet. I listen carefully to the pipe and hear something of noise coming from its inside, like something moving inside it. The amount of copper used to build this pipe is quite shocking, to the point that I must conclude that it had to be created pre-calamity.
Do you think we can pierce it?
Only one way to find out. I kneel down and prepare to peel back the copper with a knife. The moment I puncture the pipe, a loud hiss is heard, and scalding hot gas shoots out of it. Although I was prepared for that possibility, the random direction of the emission catches my companions off guard. Luckily, they react quick enough and nobody gets burned. I make some distance from the puncture, and the pressure soon falls in the pipe, rendering the initial gas leak into a dripping of a greenish fluid. It is the same fluid I've seen before in the tunnels. The same fluid seen all over the northern half of Brime Mere, in fact.
It's probably this fluid that's making people sick.
And I don't think this is some kind of divine punishment. Come on, let's keep going. We follow the pipeline carefully, ducking into narrow tunnels and crossing cavernous halls. The occasional pools of the stagnant, foul-smelling liquid that can also be found on the surface must have come from the damaged pipes. It appears that the same green ooze must have carved out these underground corridors and caves during decades, perhaps even centuries. My company soon comes across other pipes and odd, black, flexible ducts that crisscross these caverns. They must be leading somewhere, so I decide to follow them, although it is no easy task. After stumbling along dark tunnels in the salt for a while, we manage to find the place where the pipes lead. They coalesce into a spacious cave, where one of the walls is made of what seems like hard rock at first. The plumbing snakes into that section, and I soon realize that it is not a rock face, but is in fact stone that was fashioned into blocks, fitted seamlessly, and built into a barrier that must have been buried under the salt. Or perhaps it was here back when the basin was an inner sea, before the calamity. At any rate, it looks old, and decidedly not imperial or draconic. One of my companions wanders away and finds another similar wall section further down the cave, then another one. I soon realize that these must be part of the same structure. Whatever it is, it seems to go on forever, at times visible, other times hidden behind salt formations. Where the ceiling is higher, I can follow the structure upwards with my gaze as it disappears into the cavern's roof. This structure must have an entrance somewhere. I take my companions and follow the stone edifice for a while. It is huge. It seems to go on forever, under the salt basin, and although its segments have no openings, not even windows, pipes and cables issue out of it at intervals to disappear into the salt or into tunnels. I can hear a grinding noise sometimes from behind the stone, occasionally also accompanied by an eerie humming. Pools of the stagnant ooze dot the tunnels, and it seems that the source of it is the damaged piping. Despite my sense of wonder, I am just about to turn back when I see lights in the distance. Navigating the labyrinth of tunnels in the salt has led me to a section of caverns where magical lights are placed at intervals on the walls, in the form of imbued lamps of blue crystal. Some of these tunnels were not formed naturally, but excavated and stanchioned. The corridors lead to a large cavern where someone has dug out a hefty part of the gigantic stone structure. Although this section does not have doors either, it has odd markings and a series of murals. Several pipes exit the stonework and disappear into the ceiling. One of them is as wide as a tower. Tools, amphorae, and crates lie in the bluish light of the crystal lamps. By the looks of it, the excavation must have involved an attempt or two to breach the stone structure, or at least take parts of it. I barely have time to think it through when I see Garrick removing the lamp crystals, leaving just enough to provide light for further looting. The party also finds some quality tools the excavation crew left behind, as well as stone tablets with ancient carvings and a book of arcane text. Not a bad haul altogether. I walk up to the stone edifice and take a closer look. The seamlessly fitted stones show markings that are decidedly geometrical and remind me of dwarven rune writing. Occasionally, the signs flare up with arcane light, and humming can be heard from inside the structure.
Magic at work, if I could guess.
That, coupled with the grinding of what I can only imagine being some kind of gears, makes me believe that this structure is a gigantic machine of unknown purpose and origin. Then I spot old imperial marks carved into some of the stones, which further mystifies me. Upon inspection by initiated eyes, it becomes clear that the runic writing is dwarven in origin. Rows of smaller runes adorn the stonework almost everywhere, in some places barely perceptibly. Larger runes appear on the stone more sparsely, usually at focal points in the decoration or near pipe joints. Most of these markings seem to be practical, perhaps instructions or descriptions. They are also very old. Present-day dwarven writing is less geometrical and appears a cruder, more bastardized version of this.
Yeah, right. Listen here. See all them tiny runes all over that stone? That ain't fancy writing. That's instructions. Flow control, they call it. Means keeping whatever's running in there going where it's supposed to go.
He strikes the block with a sharp blow.
And this bit looks like stone. Yeah, ain't just stone. That's a lever. Some of them twist, some of them turn. Old dwarves loved hiding their switches in that walls. Smart bastards.
He sniffs uneasily, pointing at the large, glowing runes.
Now them big runes, that's bad news. Warnings, they light up when shit goes wrong. And seeing them glow like that means everything's going wrong.
He makes a vague gesture along the structure.
The flow's pissing out all along the machine, clogging up where it shouldn't, and in some spots, it's even running backwards. Backward. For stone's sake, that thing's busted. Rest of the marks, just names. Old craftsmen signing their work. Little blessings, too. That's what dwarves used to do on important stones.
The air is charged with magic. The entire structure is literally steeped in arcane energy. This isn't a simple imprint. It's complete saturation. The stone itself was shaped under the influence of powerful spells. Given its near pristine condition and apparent age, that's hardly surprising.
She brushes her fingers along the runes, without actually touching them.
These inscriptions emit the same signature as embedded spells and permanent charms. They are not decorative. They are still functioning. The knowledge technology, and mastery of magic required to create something like this. The legends say it was only possible during the Golden Age, before the Calamity annihilated Zarin.
We should report this to the proper authorities. If what you're saying is true, we've just made a sensational discovery. Before I could decide, I hear someone approach. My companions become aware of the approaching noises as quickly as I do, but it is too late. Before I could regroup or leave furtively through a tunnel, 2 soldiers clad in opalescent dragon steel armor walk into the room and stare at me in astonishment. I lock gazes with them while my companions are waiting for my reaction. Step aside and clear our path. I have no time for it. The soldiers draw their blades with alarming ferocity, run at me, and let out a draconic roar so loud that it echoes through the caverns.